What it do, cuckolds? It's your boy the hater once again. It's the hater once again. Do it, do it, do it, do it. It's the hater once again. I just made that up on the spot, cucks. That's how creative the hater is. Today's video is going to be about how the Bloodline storyline has gone from extremely stupid to straight up impossibly insane. None of the things that are happening are making any sense. The storyline is something that could be written by literally a second grader. And I will explain why in this video, cucks. So strap in, get a coffee or whatever beverage you want to enjoy while you listen to the hater, and let's get to it. Hater on the road. Hater on his way to the airport, cucks. Now, the Bloodline storyline began the same way that it's clearly ending, right? Number one, the storyline started with Roman Reigns being one man, right? Eventually, because Roman Reigns is boring, let's be honest, Roman Reigns is interesting in terms of his presence and his presentation, but he's not a very exciting wrestler, right? The matches aren't that entertaining, and his mic skills are, I won't say zero, but they're below mid. Let's be honest, right? If WWE or any other wrestling company depended on Roman Reigns cutting a 10 out of 10 promo, both companies would be out of business. Let's be real. It is not within Roman Reigns to cut a 10 out of 10 promo. And this is something that we need to address in another video. The concept of the 10 out of 10 promo and how rare it is. Anyways, before we get to that, let's talk about this, right? Roman Reigns starts it by himself. They put him with a generic manager, Paul Heyman. I am sick and tired of hearing how Paul Heyman is this like wrestling genius. You know what I mean? I'm sick of it. This guy is known primarily for failing in ECW, despite the fact that the fans still scream ECW today. Nobody cared enough. And people say things like, oh, he didn't know how to manage finances. Learn, motherfucks. Learn. It's not like managing finances is this like incredibly difficult thing. You can take a finance class at your local community college and learn the ins and outs. Paul Heyman is supposed to be this creative genius, right? I just saw a YouTube short saying that Paul Heyman clashed heads with Vince because he believed in CM Punk. Well, once again, Vince McMahon was right and Paul Heyman was wrong. CM Punk sucks, as shown to us by many, many, many different examples of CM Punk basically ruining things and quitting when things get difficult, right? He is responsible for the current state of AEW right now, which is the worst it's ever been. You know, not to say that AEW is going to be something amazing, but CM Punk clearly didn't help. He clearly hindered by joining AEW, and people like me said this from the beginning. But that's not here nor there. They put Roman Reigns with Paul Heyman because Paul Heyman is the guy you put people that can't talk with, right? I don't know why, right? There's other people that can do this job. You know what I mean? There's other people that you can find that can be managers and cut promos. You know what I mean? But they always go with Paul Heyman. Fine. It worked out because he was the wise man. As the wise man, Paul Heyman got paid an insane amount of money basically for taking a powerbomb through the table a few months ago and then subsequently cutting the same promo literally every week. This is unacceptable, right? The entire Roman Reigns creation is the tribal chief is here, and then Roman Reigns just recognized me, and Paul Heyman does his shtick. He does his Enzo Amore promo, but with half the charisma of Enzo Amore. You know, now I'm not saying Paul Heyman is a complete degenerate. Paul Heyman is decent on the mic, but he's not a 10 out of 10 guy. Maybe he has like one or two 10 out of 10 promos. You can say the ECW one on One Night Stand could have been a 10 out of 10. Personally, for me, it's an 8, but whatever. You understand what I'm getting at, right? Then they realize that Paul Heyman with Roman Reigns is the same fucking thing as Brock Lesnar with Paul Heyman, right? In other words, Paul Heyman is not capable of changing anything, right? He's not capable of adding anything specifically to Roman Reigns. You see what I'm saying? Roman Reigns is going to be Roman Reigns, and Paul Heyman is going to be Paul Heyman. It's not like Paul Heyman is going to change a little bit to fit the new character. I'll give an example. There's a manager in the Indies, or there was, called Truth Martini. One of my personal favorite managers. Truth Martini, right? On one time, he can be like a regular manager. Then he can start like an entire gimmick for the boring-ass Matt Taven. The hoopla gimmick, right? Where he comes out dressed all of a sudden now, he's just like the Mad Hatter, right? He's like exuberant. He's like a different character, basically, right? The manager doesn't have to be the same character. In fact, managers, like for example, the guy whose name I forget, the one that managed the diamond mine, the black guy, I forget his name, right? Like, that guy is just a generic nobody, right? He's just a manager who's like, this is the team I represent. Great, who gives a fuck? You could put him with Indus Sher, you could put him with Pretty Deadly, it's the same thing, right? Now, imagine if the manager, instead of being with, like, Indus Sher and acting like a regular guy, he decided to dress up like an Indian for some reason, right? Ironically or something, right? Then you put him with Pretty Deadly, and he starts becoming more like a Rico character, right? That's called a good manager. A good manager is not just a guy that does the same thing for everybody, and then half of them fail. Nobody talks about how Ryback, which should have been a massive star, failed under Paul Heyman. I will concede that Curtis Axel sucks, so we're not going to say that this guy was a missed opportunity. But Ryback deserved more. Anyways, and so did Cesaro, honestly, right? Especially considering that Cesaro with Paul Heyman and Cesaro without Paul Heyman, right, was the same thing. He was the same thing. Nothing changed at all, right? Whereas, for example, Cesaro with Zeb Coulter, he robbed the Jack Swagger gimmick, right? He became like a real American. They fit that in somehow, right? And even when Zeb Coulter, who was a great manager, went to manage Alberto Del Rio, right? He became like a reformed man. Like, he had to change his character. You can't just be the same fucking guy doing the same things. But anyways, enough about Paul Heyman. Subsequently, they realized that Paul Heyman cannot make this happen. So they need to create a stable around him. The stable starts out simultaneously eventually with the Usos, right? Jimmy Uso really misses out because he's injured. So Jey Uso is essentially being recruited by Roman Reigns, right? But also Jey Uso doesn't accept that Roman Reigns is the tribal chief. Fair enough, right? Why should he? So they have like a series of boring ass matches with conversations in the middle of the match that people said were cinema. These were some of the worst matches ever. Also, they were bad because nobody reasonably would ever believe that that Jey Uso has any capacity to win the title from Roman Reigns. It's just silly, right? So they did this twice, by the way. But anyways, they do this. Jimmy Uso comes in, throws in the towel. Eventually, Roman Reigns beats Jey again, and both of them join, right? There's some dissension with him and Jimmy, but eventually everyone falls in line, right? The Usos take their role of lackey bitch boys very well, and it paid dividends for both of them, but obviously more so for Jey Uso, right? Then eventually, they got Solo Sikoa in there. He's like family with the Usos, and therefore family with Roman Reigns. So it's like, of course, this guy has to join the Bloodline. He actually is family. It's not like, for example, like Tama Tonga, where it's like he's not family at all, but like they look kind of the same. They're both like islanders, so put them together, right? It's not like that. Jacob Fatu and Solo Sikoa first are actual family members, so it would make sense that they would be involved with Roman Reigns, or they would have like a gimmick where their gimmick is, I don't want to be involved with my family. Either way, they have to cross paths with the family, right? Kind of like, remember when Primo debuted and he's like, I don't want to be associated with Carlito, and a few years later, he's like in a tag team with Carlito, because what else are you going to do? Anyways, that shit went down. It is what it is. And when I say a few years later, it was a few months later. Anyways, that stuff went down. Now there's a stable. The stable starts being dominant with the Usos winning the tag team titles, right? But then, the same way that they kept adding new members to the stable, new members start showing dissension, right? The Usos start showing dissension. They ultimately wrestle Roman and Solo in a tag match, where the Usos are able to beat both the longest reigning WWE champion basically ever, right? And the guy that's now presented as a main eventer. The Usos beat them both, which I actually like because it shows that in a tag team match, that's the Usos' domain, right? Like, even if it was like Cody and Gunther, they should lose to like the tag team champions in a tag match, right? Because the tag team champions are the tag team champions, right? But obviously that wouldn't apply if it was like, for example, I don't know, Stone Cold and The Rock versus like, the Hardy Boys. The Hardy Boys are taking the L. They're getting squashed. It goes without saying, right? But you understand what I'm getting at. The star power of Gunther and Cody isn't the same, and honestly, neither is Roman's. So this happens. We have more dissension, right? And the Bloodline eventually starts falling apart. The catalyst for this is the betrayal and the change that I just mentioned, right? This leads to Jey Uso getting another title shot that he loses. Now, Roman Reigns has to face, The Rock, right? Roman Reigns has to face The Rock, and Jey Uso is not part of this, but Jimmy Uso still is, because he goes back, because he's like the ultimate bitch boy. Like, Jimmy Uso as a character has to be like the ultimate lackey. Like, there's nobody that's more of a lackey in wrestling history than Jimmy Uso. Nevertheless, Jimmy, like, he's been a lackey the entire time. Like, you know what I mean? But anyways, Lackey Uso and Solo Sikoa are still there, right? The Rock comes out, they have their disagreement, the fans revolt, Cookie Rhodes gets put in there as well. Cookie Rhodes ultimately ends up beating Roman Reigns, and Roman Reigns goes on his hiatus, which everyone expected and knew was going to happen. Some people thinking he would never come back, right? Roman Reigns eventually comes back. The landscape has slightly changed, with now the same thing that we saw with Roman Reigns happening in reverse order with Solo Sikoa, right? Solo Sikoa gets rid of Jimmy Uso, who sucks ass. He gets rid of Paul Heyman eventually, and he starts adding his new people. And just like they were added in the original Bloodline, they get added one at a time every couple of weeks or so. First they had Tama Tonga. Then they realize this guy has absolutely zero presence. I've never seen a wrestler that is less of a wrestler than Tama Tonga, except for Brock Anderson, who will always be the worst wrestler of all time. Then they get Camacho, whom they fired many years ago because he sucks. They get him too. That's not enough. These guys aren't believable in any capacity because they have the collective presence of Taka Michinoku. Then, eventually they get Jacob Fatu, who, for all this shit that I talk about, and I call him Jacob Fat Fuck, you know what I'm saying? This guy, at the very least, has some presence, right? He doesn't have the presence of Roman Reigns. He doesn't have the presence of, like, Kane or of The Undertaker or of anybody worthwhile. But when compared to those around him, he has more presence. That's why he's being presented as, in many ways, superior to Solo Sikoa, because Solo Sikoa is just a chubby guy who wears a black shirt, and Jacob Fat Fuck is a chubby guy who wears a tank top. You know what I'm saying? But anyways, that's how that shit goes down. Basically, the new Bloodline has formed. Now, obviously, every fan with more than one brain cell has realized that this means Roman Reigns needs to destroy the Bloodline, and almost everybody understands that the only way this is going to happen, obviously, is a Bloodline civil war. The Usos are doing fuck all with their careers at this point. Jimmy Uso is a singles guy that nobody thinks is going to do anything. He ends up winning the IC title, but nobody expected that. And quite frankly, that's going to be his moment, and that's it. Like, he's not going to be a singles guy ever again, I don't think. So anyways, with all that being said, it was what it was. Basically, Roman Reigns comes back, and he comes back with the philosophy of, I don't need anybody, right? That's the idea. Roman Reigns says, I don't need anybody, right? This is a completely reasonable method of thinking, right? Roman Reigns is Roman Reigns. He is the ultimate champion. He is the guy, and he has been the guy for like 5 years minimum, right? You could argue he's been the guy for like 8 years, except for during his leukemia situation, right? But he's been the guy for a long time. So he's like, oh, okay, I have to face 3 new guys that nobody knows, and Solo Sikoa, one of the ultimate lackeys. So he comes in there, but the numbers game catch up to him, and in my opinion, I would decide Roman Reigns bury all these guys, but they decided to postpone this burial for years, for months I should say, but probably for years. But anyways, then Roman Reigns realizes as a result of the gang-ups against him that he cannot do it himself. Roman Reigns doesn't have what it takes to do it himself. Fair enough, cucks. Fair enough. So what happens? Well, eventually, the same thing that happened when Roman Reigns formed the Bloodline happens again. It just is the same fucking thing. The order is a little bit different because Paul Heyman hasn't joined yet, but everybody comes back to the Bloodline, except for Solo Sikoa, who still has aspirations of being the tribal chief and, quite frankly, currently is the tribal chief. So anyways, Jimmy Uso comes back. That's obviously not enough. What's Jimmy Uso gonna do? He's only one motherfucker, right? Cookie Rhodes comes in and tries to help Roman Reigns before Jimmy Uso. I don't know why. Nobody explained this at all. Cody Rhodes basically says, we need to stop Solo Sikoa. And then they win the match. Solo Sikoa is not stopped, and Cody Rhodes is gone, doing other shit. So he leaves Roman Reigns on his own. Roman Reigns and Jimmy Uso save Cookie Rhodes. Then Cookie Rhodes moves on to what he's comfortable doing. Absolutely nothing, and taking money from this company. So anyways, now it's Roman and Jimmy. That's not enough. What do we need to do? Add another guy. So after like 3 weeks of coaxing, Jey Uso goes from an incredible, defiant run of several years, if you kind of pack it together, to being Lackey Bitch Boy immediately. And then, not only that, he becomes Lackey Bitch Boy, and he becomes Lackey Bitch Boy Recruiter to try to get Sami Zayn on board. The same thing happens with Sami Zayn. The same fucking thing. I don't want to join. Then he joins. Jey Uso, I don't want to join. Then he joins. Next up on the docket, we've got Seth cucking Rollins. I don't want to join. And he's going to join. He's going to be a lackey. He's going to be a lackey as well. He was always subordinate to Roman Reigns in the Shield, and he needs to take that position once again. Meanwhile, Roman Reigns is getting buried nearly every week. Number one, Roman Reigns is getting his ass beat. Number two, Roman Reigns is not coming off as an efficient leader. He's coming off as a bitch, as a pussy, right? Roman Reigns comes out there, doesn't know what the fuck to do. So the onus falls on people like Sami Zayn and Jey Uso and Jimmy Uso to basically, save Roman Reigns' life and make him relevant again. You know what I mean? Now, with all that being said, Roman Reigns is nowhere to be seen. Last few weeks, the three stooges, the three lackey bitch boys, those guys are out there doing nothing, right? They're out there trying to coax Seth Rollins. How about Roman Reigns, who has history with Seth Rollins, and it makes perfect sense. He could be like, hey, Seth, we had some good times, we had some bad times, I need your help, dog. He could do something like that, but he doesn't. And not out of defiance, not out of like, I don't need Seth Rollins. We're past that, motherfucks. We're past that. Now Roman Reigns is doing it out of insecurity. He doesn't think Sami Zayn is going to join. He doesn't think Seth Rollins is going to join, right? So he doesn't want to ask him. So his lackey bitch boys do it, which is effectively the same thing. It just makes Roman Reigns look like a pussy. He's at home while his family gets their asses handed to them by Solo Sikoa, motherfucks. Anyways, eventually, let's just fast forward a little bit to War Games, right? Let's just fast forward to after next week when Seth Rollins will officially join, I'm sure. Or this week, this Friday probably, whatever. Seth Rollins will join. No one's going to know why, because he's going to join because Solo Sikoa distracted him, I guess. Really stupid reason, but nevertheless, Seth Rollins is going to join to get his hands on Bronson Reed, which really begs a dumbass question. Why would you recruit Bronson Reed if he's getting his ass beat by everybody if you're Solo Sikoa? Nevertheless, the War Games match, for some strange reason, has to be a 5-on-5. It can easily be a 4-on-4. But nevertheless, it's 5-on-5, cucks. We're doing it 5-on-5. Now, what started out as the storyline of Roman Reigns getting back, quote-unquote, what is rightfully his, has subsequently turned into a full-blown Bloodline civil war where everyone is irrelevant. Notice the word I used. I didn't say everyone's equal. Everyone is irrelevant. And it's easy to see why. Obviously, nobody needs to explain in detail why Tama Tonga and Tonga Loa are irrelevant in this feud. Look at them. They're just two bodies, and they are not part of the Anoa'i family. They are from a different country, from a different island called Fiji, motherfucks. Fiji. Now, these two nobodies are balanced out on the other side by two other nobodies called Sami Zayn, mega rant coming on him soon, and Seth Rollins, who also are not part of the family. Add in Bronson Reed, who I'm told is half Samoan, but nevertheless not part of the Anoa'i, aka the annoying family, and that's 5 motherfucks in this match that have nothing to do with the Bloodline. The Bloodline Civil War doesn't mean that it splits into 2 and then they add members until we have 5 on each side. Nobody cares about the rest of these people. As I've said many times, imagine a situation, and this is how stupid this has become. Imagine a situation where the match starts, the 5th man from the inferior team enters, and now we have all 10 motherfucks in the match. The match starts. Let's say right as this moment happens, Seth Rollins hits the stomp on Tama Tonga and pins this jobber. Imagine if that happened, right? Feud's over. Have we established, though, if Roman Reigns is the tribal chief? No, we haven't. This feud cannot establish that. That's the ultimate bait and switch. They intend to continue this, you motherfucks. Like, the only way that this resolves itself is Roman Reigns pins Solo Sikoa, which is probably what's going to happen anyways, and Roman Reigns takes the ulufala, puts it around his neck, and all the Bloodline, including Sami Zayn, raise their fingers, right? And then Seth Rollins claps as he walks out by the ramp, like classic like Seth Rollins shit. So what I'm getting at here is, even if that happens, Solo Sikoa can claim, wait a second, yeah, you beat me, but it was a 5-on-5 match. I also got my ass kicked by like Sami Zayn, right? Why don't we do a 1-on-1? A 1-on-1 needs to happen at this point. Now, let's consider the alternative. Instead of doing what they chose to do, in my personal opinion, it would have been more intelligent and wiser to just have Roman Reigns unaccompanied by the Usos, and he single-handedly pins each and every one of these overall 75s in the next SmackDown game, except for Jacob Fatu, will probably be like an 85, right? He just pins all these overall 75s one by one and establishes himself as the 99 overall that he is, right? That's what Roman Reigns needed to have done. Instead of this, Roman Reigns is struggling against 75ers. And why? So that Seth Rollins can have a match? Seth Rollins is in an ongoing shit feud, might I add, with Bronson Reed. Why not just resolve that independently? Why does this have to get tacked on to another feud that has a storyline that revolves around the concept of family, right? Why? You know, as a matter of fact, maybe they can push this all the way to the Royal Rumble and have everyone in the Royal Rumble be affiliated with one or the other, right? Oh, Nathan Frazier is having a feud with Eddie Thorpe in NXT. Well, Eddie Thorpe has joined Solo Sikoa and Nathan Frazier has joined Roman Reigns. Why the hell not? Why the hell not? You've already done it enough times. In a bloodline civil war, in a family affair type of match, 5 people out of 10 people, one half cuckolds, are not part of the family. If you count Paul Heyman's, interference or whatever the fuck he's gonna do, that's 6 out of 10. Or 6 out of 11, what am I saying? Which is more than 50%. So, in summation, the question remains, how can they fix this? In my opinion, they cannot. The Bloodline storyline has ran its course, and the payoff will not feel like a big deal. And here's why. Number 1, the consistent additions of jobber-ass wrestlers on both sides of the equation, on both the new and the old Bloodline, ruins the moment. Let's not forget, motherfucks, that out of everyone involved in this match, now we have Seth Rollins, right, who's a multiple-time world champion. There's only one other world champion, Roman Reigns. Everybody else, here's the breakdown. Roman Reigns, one of the GOATs, at least in kayfabe, right? He's presented as being quasi-unbeatable. Seth Rollins, a very high-level upper mid-carder, who sometimes moonlights as a main eventer. Then, after this, we have Sami Zayn, perpetual mid-card / undercard wrestler. And then, literally everyone else is an undercard wrestler. It is a main event filled to the brim with undercard wrestlers. In other words, if Roman Reigns were to even pin all these guys by himself in a Survivor Series traditional match, which would be great, none of these pinfalls would even matter. It would just matter because the storyline's over. We know that in a one-on-one match, if WWE sets it up, there is no way in hell that Solo Sikoa is beating Roman Reigns. There's no way that Solo is getting one over on Reigns at this juncture in a one-on-one match. This might change in a few months because Roman Reigns, I've never seen a burial like this. This is like a catastrophic burial. This is the year of burials. Usually people get pushed right after WrestleMania, but Drew McIntyre and fucking Roman Reigns, burial city. So now we find ourselves scratching our head and likely scratching our balls. What is there to look forward to? Well, personally, I'm looking past Survivor Series. I want this shit to end. I don't want to see it. You understand me? I'm going to see it so I can review it for you guys, but I want it to end. And what is the point? We all know, let's just say, for the sake of argument, that Solo Sikoa pins Roman Reigns clean. This is not ending until the good guy wins, right? Until Roman Reigns wins, there is no end to this. This is the redemption arc. It's just like when John Cena wrestled The Rock, right? Which started the WrestleMania before, when Cena wrestled Miz and The Rock screwed him, right? You knew that this is gonna end when Cena beats The Rock. Immediately you knew. Most people thought it was gonna be at their match at next WrestleMania, but it wasn't. It took another WrestleMania. they pushed that a lot, but whatever. That was cool because The Rock got to be champion once again, which is awesome. It's the fucking Rock, right? He got to beat John Cena in a non-title match. Then he became champion, and then Cena beat him in a title match. Honestly, one of the most underrated stories ever. But anyways, neither here nor there. The fact of the matter is the fact of the matter, cucks. We have a situation where everything that's happening is completely meaningless. Because once it's all said and done, we all know the outcome is Roman Reigns is going to win, and then eventually The Rock is going to come out, right? We already know the payoff. And that is the primary reason, aside from the fact that it's a complete and utter waste of everyone's time, the primary reason why this storyline shouldn't have gone on this long is because we know how it ends. Or at least, at the very least, because there is a chance, I suppose, that The Rock pins Roman Reigns. I doubt it, but there is a chance. We know at least what the next step is, what the next important step is. Now, if we have the next important step already outlined for our bitch asses, then what are we waiting for? The debut of Camacho? Like, that was like a big deal. Oh my God, it's Camacho. Is it? Well, fuck him. You know what I'm saying? Fuck Tangaloa, fuck Tamatonga, and fuck Unico and Sin Cara as well, since we're at it, cucks. That's what I'm getting at here. Just move on. Get to the next point. I understand if you don't know what's next. For example, you might prolong the Bronson Reed Seth Rollins feud because you're not sure if Bronson Reed is going to then move into a meaningful feud or if he's going to move into the undercard where he ultimately will end up in a few years. Aspirations that, like, I saw like a clip. Bronson Reed's like, I think I should be Cena's last opponent. I think you're retarded. Here's what's going to happen. When Cena has his match, Bronson Reed will be lucky to be in the Andre the Giant Battle Royal. All right? He might win it, but that's where he belongs, cucks. So with all that being said, what are we doing? Well, I personally, as I've said in this channel in previous times, I'm just waiting for this shit to end. I'm not looking forward to the next step of the saga of the Bloodline at all. I've been ready for it to end for 6 months. Now, some of you may be thinking, hater, well, just because you're ready doesn't mean we're ready. And the hater acknowledges that. There are people that might want to see this continue. Good for you. I believe that these people are in the vast minority. They are not the majority of fans. The majority of fans want to see things move forward. This storyline, which has taken, center stage in SmackDown and now on Raw as well, this storyline has completely rendered everything else meaningless. And other people are basically waiting for Roman Reigns to do shit, namely the cuckster himself. Cody Rhodes will have meaningless feud after meaningless feud after meaningless feud until Roman Reigns is ready to wrestle him, right? That's what's going to happen. Or until The Rock is ready to wrestle him. God forbid that happens. I mean, I guess it'd be cool to have The Rock just lay the smackdown on Cody Rhodes and beat him like he did CM Punk. And then Cody Rhodes can go do interviews with Chris Van Vliet talking about how this is unfair. Shut up. You know what I'm saying? Now, with all that being said, we know that's where it's heading, right? Because The Rock came back. That's how powerful The Rock is. He can just come back, do nothing, and it's like, okay, thank God. Like, everyone was like, oh, thank God The Rock is back, because there was a chance that he might not come back at all, right? Now he came back, so it's like, all right, he's going to do some shit. He's going to layeth or smacketh down a couple more times, I would hope. And with that being said, we're just waiting for that to happen. We don't care about anything else. Nothing else is meaningful. It's just pushing shit until everything aligns. You see what I'm saying? But nothing can align until Roman Reigns is unmolested by this bullshit storyline. If I were Roman Reigns, I'd be like, this is a terrible storyline. This is supposed to be like one of his, crown achievements, right? This is one of the things that he's going to be remembered by. His title reign and the aftermath of the title reign. And the eventual recapturing of the title, right? I don't know how this ends, but I imagine that for the World Wrestling Federation Entertainment, I should say, heavyweight title, we have Roman Reigns versus The Rock at WrestleMania. If it's anything other than that, this year is a disaster. I mean, even if it is that match, this year is a massive disaster because realistically, what can we say about this year? Thus far, nothing's happened. We're already at Survivor Series. After Survivor Series, we're entering Royal Rumble territory, motherfucks. After Survivor Series, you might have a pay-per-view here and there, but after that, people start declaring for the Rumble up in this mug. You know what I mean? So, what exactly is it that we're waiting for? Nothing. We're just waiting for this shit to end so we can get to the Royal Rumble. And this is the fault of the Bloodline. But obviously not the people involved, but the writers themselves. The people that don't understand. Roman Reigns is a star. He should be treated like a star. He shouldn't be forced to go out there and barely beat or oftentimes lose to Solo Sikoa. And that's all I gotta say about that, cucks. This video was great. It's almost like a mega rant, which is what I'm gonna call it, because it went on to be like 30 minutes. And to be completely honest, it worked out perfectly because I'm now at the airport, cucks. So with that being said, thank you for watching and take care of yourselves. I hope you guys heard that automated response from the parking thing. All right, cucks, take care of yourselves and your mothers. See ya.